Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this IG Live. My name is Meg Cooper. I'm on the committee of Dancers Australia. Dancers Australia is under the umbrella of MIA, which is the union for all performing artists across Australia. I own Mad Dance House, have had Mad Dance House for 20 years, and just for years have had a lot of questions and just a feeling of something's not right here, that dancers always seem to be bottom of the barrel, and also book dancers and see a lot of requests come across my desk of companies asking for dancers for exposure, that word exposure. And it just makes me shake my head. So that's why I'm here. And that's why I'm happy to be a part of the committee, because I really would love to see the industry rise and be better recognised. Yeah. Over to you, Leah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leah. I am a professional dancer. I'm a B-girl. I've been dancing for 22 years. I have toured a lot with different companies. I have my own dance company called Elements Collective. So along with being a performer, I also book a lot of people. I book tours, I book performances, I book gigs, we book workshops, and we run events. So I am across sort of the both sides of this industry in terms of being an artist and as well as that person that books a lot of people as well. So I'm really, interested to have a conversation about unionising the dance group, the dance world. What about you, Neri?
Hey everybody, my name is Nerida Matei, and I'm a dancer and a choreographer, and also have a company called Fluxus 2 Dance Collective, based in Brisbane, Yuggera and Turrbal country. And similarly, I kind of worked as an independent artist across all different kinds of companies, and then also doing some booking and kind of producing of events and shows as well.
Very cool. So it's awesome for us to be together. I really think we have a wide reach and with good experience. So I think let's get started with, what is a professional dancer? When can you call yourself a professional and feel 100% okay with invoicing for your work? Or Leah, what do you think? What is it? When can you call yourself professional?
I mean, I sometimes question this because I book both emerging dancers, I book kids, I book professional dancers as well. For me, because I guess my scene doesn't have that traditional training background, there's street dancers and breakers. Our, I guess, experience level is really off your experience in competition and also, I guess, in performing as well. You can be a professional level dancer, but have maybe done professional level work before. So, or you could be a brilliant performer, but a pretty terrible teacher. So there's kind of different ways where, I guess, within our world, because we don't have, I guess, that certification that other dance styles might have to validate what is professional. For me, I value myself on my experience, my years of dance, my level of dance, I guess your skill set as well. You know, for me as a B-girl, there's not a lot of girls that do what I do. So I look at that, and I also look at that when I'm booking breakers in general. I look at the level of expertise that it takes to do the skills that a client might want, and go, there's actually only 10 people in the state that are doing what you're asking them to do on a professional level. So yeah, there's lots to consider. I would look at your experience, your skill set, and your professionalism in the way you present yourself.
So for me personally, I think professional is actually a mindset. So when a dancer decides within themselves to take themselves more seriously, then I think that there's a change that happens. I have seen dancers who have no certificate in dance or anything, but for me, I see them as professional, because the way they handle themselves and their business acumen, that kind of thing. So, but definitely, I think if you have graduated from a Cert 4 or diploma or tertiary level degree, you're professional. You are professional, and it's time for you to put that professional hat on and rep the industry at large. That's what I would think. What about you, Neri?
Yeah, I think I agree with both of you. You know, there is kind of like, particularly in the contemporary world, there's always been that tertiary level of training. But now, you know, that sort of way of training is changing and shifting. And then there's lots of vet courses where you can go and do dance degrees. But I do think that everybody is an individual. So if you are wanting to do your dancing as a profession, then you are at least approaching to be a professional. And then there's all the different kind of categories within that. So if you're emerging, are you professor? Are you mid-career? Are you late career? So I think really it comes down to, like you said, Meg, what you're wanting to achieve for yourself. Training and skills and experience then comes into what level of professional you might be. Yeah. I think it's when it comes to training and things. I mean, I know when I went through uni, we got taught a tiny little bit about what kind of business professionalism is, but really, I don't know how many people really get taught some of those things. And it's through learning and experience that you go, oh, I need to check my emails daily, or oh, I should send an invoice within 7 days, or whatever. So I feel like there's a bit of a gap in knowledge, or something missing around that extra side. You've got to learn all of the skills to be a dancer, but then also you have to become like a sole trader in a small business. It's a whole nother way of thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And something I think that isn't spelt out a lot in our full-time courses. Well, that wasn't my experience, although I graduated a chunk of years ago. But yeah, it wasn't, well, we were just training to be dancers, to do pirouettes and kicks and, you know, but clueless on how to raise an invoice and all of that stuff. But that's easy to learn. There's been very little research done on the real wages and conditions of everyday dance workers. And sometimes I think it's just expected that people dance for very little, or really, you know, beneath industry rates. And so this is why Dancers Australia is trying to formulate a real benchmark and a guideline, so that all dancers know who are working in the industry that this exists now. And it really is to up the whole industry and raise the whole acknowledgement that we are professional, that dancers are not hobbyists, and that we are worthy of being paid well. So Leah, did you want to give like an example of someone asking you to work for cheap or whatever?
I mean, it's a request that I get through my company pretty regularly. I'd say every third request for work for dancers is that we do it for fun, because it's a fun, you know, like what we do is pretty fun. But I think, yeah, usually, you know, some of the commercial work that we get, the dancers are that filler spot. So we're at the bottom of their budget jar. And because what we do is fun, I think they just think, oh, you know, you don't need that much money, or we don't need to pay you at all because you're just there for fun anyway, and we need to get the crowd pumped up. So yeah, I mean, years I've had, you can often see it at the start of the email when they introduce their company, and you know what's about to happen from reading the first line of an email sometimes. But you know, I've also had, hey, can we have some dancers for free? And my response now, sure, I've got some students who have never performed before, and they would be willing to be on that stage for the first time, but they're students and they've never been on stage before. So if you are looking for free dancers for exposure, then my students would love the chance to perform for the first time. And when I explain that I then have a group of professional dancers who do it as a job for a living, but this is what the cost is, they really do see the value difference. And that's changed a lot. That's changed a lot of the responses that I get, and that's changed relationships within some major events that we work for now. And then also, I guess, stemming on to what we're towards with Dancers Australia is, you know, I've been working through the Live Performance Award, so I've been able to reference that and say, we pay our dancers professionally. This is our minimum award that I pay them on. And at least then that's just that reference point when I'm quoting to be able to go, these guys are professionals. They're just like any other trade, just like any other industry. This is a job. Being able to reference an award rate, which you would do in hospitality, which you would do in anything, and say, this is actually our minimum. That also when you're sending a quote through as well. So yeah, I guess that's a little bit of my experience. So still, as a company that books a lot, we always get requests for free work, and my response is no.
Yeah, exactly. I think what would be really nice is that performing artists across the world would be seen as like, yeah, that's really something that we're pushing for, isn't it? Just to be considered a bit more highly. Like you would never call a plumber and it's just nah. So I think we'd love to just eradicate completely this, oh, they'll do it for free. They need the exposure.
Yeah,
nah.
I guess within the scene that we do, the commercial work, I think because the dancing is the filler spot, it's the filler entertainment between dinner and the award night, or it's the entertainment between a sports game, or it's the background dancers behind a singer. Like, it's a filler spot. So I think because we're essentially the background entertainment, that's also the value that they see on it. When I can read into it, I'm like, oh, you've got a little bit of money left, so we'll get some dancers. But when actually the dancers are pretty much the best entertainment you've probably got on the night, you know, they really do make the event work, but some consideration when in terms of value.
Yeah.
I don't often get asked to work for free anymore, but I, without fail, probably every gig get asked to work for below award rates or minimum wage. So, you know, it's kind of just a constant part of how I have to manage things that come in. And so I've just kind of gotten really good at going, we can totally do the idea that you're wanting, and I'll send you through a quote on what that would cost, knowing that they will never have the budget for that, but also just trying to develop an understanding of what those costs actually are in reality, and then offering them a couple of options that I can see as an artist that might be able to give them what they're after in some ways, but will also be really good for the people needing to deliver it. So it does mean that there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of negotiation, and it doesn't always work, of course, and I'm kind of happy to just let some things go if I don't feel like they're ethical. Otherwise, I try and provide something that either is going to, you know, give more of an emerging artist an opportunity that's going to be good for them at what they expect to be paid. And when I say that, I say not what I think they should be paid, but what also they are happy to be paid. Or, you know, so that it kind of scales down and like you said before, Leah, sometimes it means that some of the artists who are a bit more experienced maybe don't get certain positions because they are more expensive. But I just feel like, yeah, I just don't like creating environments where things are unethical or continuing to kind of foster this idea of that we will do it for less.
How do we actually change the perception of dancers? Where does it start? How do we do this? I mean, this is a mammoth project, and it's something that we're fully aware is going to take years, because you're always going to get dancers that are going to undercut to get the gig because perhaps it is just their secondary source of income. Where do you think this should start?
Yeah, like what we were talking about before, it's education. It's letting working dancers know that there are organisations like MIA and Dancers Australia, and there are minimum rates of value, but to also learn to value yourself. It took me a long time to value myself and my level of dance to a monetary amount, even just for teaching, to kind of go, actually, my time is really valuable and my experience is really valuable. So I think it's more conversations like this, just more education with people as well, inviting them to have conversations. It's an uncomfortable subject to also be able to put a money value on your worth, to let them know
Yeah.
that, you know, or there is rates for when you travel. There is rates for per diem. There is that kind of standard. You should be getting superannuation, all of that kind of stuff. There's still working dancers that are surprised when I ask for their super details, because they're like, what? I've never been paid super before. You know, it's like, yeah, I think emerging professionals as well, when you've been working freelance for so long, sometimes don't know those little extra allowances that you should be getting that any other industry gets as well.
Yeah.
And I think knowing, like, yeah, definitely knowing your value, but knowing that it's okay to have these conversations with people, because I think, I mean, at least when I was an emerging professional, there was a lot of talk about, oh, I don't want to burn the bridge, you know.
Yeah.
So if something was being asked of you that you didn't agree with or you felt was not quite right, being comfortable with being able to have the conversation about it. And I still think that not a lot of people do that. So if people feel that way, because a lot of the time we are working in isolation and you're working by yourself, is there someone that you can call and ask for their advice? This is going on. What do you think about that? You know, I get calls every now and again, and I'm more than happy to do that so that you can kind of help people find their way through a tricky negotiation. And knowing that it is okay to say, actually, this is what the cost is and this is the value of what you're asking for. And it doesn't have to be a personal attack on anybody to be able to have that conversation.
Yeah, definitely. And just to bring it back around to where this kind of all started, that actually got media attention, but was the AFL Grand Final. Well, I received an email asking for, like, I was floored, but what was it, 30 dancers they wanted for $1,500. Like, so that's kind of the high end, like, I mean, massive client, like totally diminishing our industry, like got us really like, whoa, you know.
There's major events that work with artists in general, like their whole mission is supporting artists that requesting for free or for really low rates. But at the same time, it's also, you know, a friend of mine is working at that they've just gone, hey, we've got this much money, you reckon you can supply some dancers? Most of the lower requests are actually for more independent work that we get through. It's very rare that now we will get larger events asking for that.
Have you got anything, Neri?
It's a little bit different. I can't think of any major events like that that have asked me to do anything for free. Yeah, recently, in the last couple of years anyway. It used to happen a bit, but the sort of world that we live in is more about our value as a choreographer in comparison to creatives, and there's a big difference between how movement and dance is acknowledged and valued in that way. So rather than it being like, can you do this for free, it's just sort of like a long conversation around doing it the right way as opposed to completely for free. Yeah, and I have to say it's almost in every conversation I have in some ways. Yeah, it's not often I'll get a request that I go, great, we can do exactly what you've asked for.
Is it okay to say no? I've said no to a lot of gigs. I actually don't really do corporate gigs anymore because I feel that the audiences don't truly appreciate the artists, and so I've committed myself more to doing work with, like, that's really going to praise and grow our scene. I mean, and that's just me personally, because I want the dancers to feel good on all the gigs I put them on. And I guess that's what we're pushing for the dancers and directors, choreographers, to be able to have one central spot to go to, such as Dancers Australia. So at the moment, we're gathering lots of data, and we really want to hear from the dancers. We want to hear your experiences, all of it. And there is a survey that you can fill out. You can find it on the Dancers Australia Instagram or Facebook page. So we really want to collate and collect all the data and then see like what is a fair rehearsal rate, what is a fair 3-hour call rate. And so we're refining that. So please, your voice is important. If you deem yourself a professional dancer, a freelance dancer of any genre, whether it be Latin, commercial, hip hop, we want to hear from you. And then you see MIA, which stands for, in case you don't know, Media Entertainment Arts Alliance. They can push to the governing bodies that this be rolled out across the board. This is the whole thing. When you have someone like Mia vouching for you, shit can happen, things can move, things can progress. So that's why this is important. And we definitely want to hear from you. So please fill in the survey. And if anyone that's listening has a question they want to ask, please write it. That's my personal rant, is that I think that artists are so important to the world, and I think we're undervalued as a systemic global issue, that because it's fun, it's not real work. But, dancers work. That is hard, what we do. If you want to throw out, put a professional with a student, you see the difference, you see it. And so that's what we're vouching for. And for me too, I'm like, $250 to do a gig, the normal for now, like $250, that is not paying your bills. You would need how many, 4 or 5 gigs like that. That's not happening. That doesn't happen. So I just would love to see one day, that you could survive solely off being a dance artist. How awesome would that be? But the thing is, when we keep accepting gigs that are way below, that's never going to happen. You are always going to be, having to be a retail worker or work in hospitality. But what I would love to see is that you're a dancer, full stop, end of story, and you get enough work because people value it. I do dream for the landscape to be changed and enhanced and just taken more seriously. We have time for a couple more questions.
There was a question about how do you call yourself a professional if you don't have a piece of paper to say you've passed a certain test? Yeah, we were just talking about if you've decided that you're going to pursue it in a professional sense, that you kind of have already determined that that's your pathway. And then it's really about figuring out what experience and skill level you're at as a professional, where you sit within that category, which really, can be kind of from pre-professional to emerging up to senior artist. So that's kind of my understanding. And of course, training helps with that. But if you can list all of your experience in a CV and show, because experience, and even from an academic sense, having done a doctorate, knowing that experience through the arts is actually considered part of your qualification. So it doesn't necessarily matter if you've got a cert or a diploma, if you have experience and skill to back yourself up.
Yeah, I think the unique thing about our jobs is that we perform in a different place almost every gig, whether it be a school that you're teaching at or whether it be a stage or a venue that you're at. You kind of are arriving on that spot to kind of gauge how you're going to perform that day. Obviously, having that person that's on the ground, being able to voice for you, to voice those concerns. A recent gig that I did, we got a briefing, we made sure we sent through what we required, our minimum staging, the surface of the stage, what we need backstage, blah, blah, blah. And then we get there and just being asked to do additional, can you guys just come through the crowd instead of starting on the stage? Just row from the back and flip to the front. But just flip through the crowd and then get up on the stage. Can you do another minute on the stairs before you get up on the stage? That kind of stuff. And just sort of being able to, I'm lucky that I'm confident enough to kind of say, hey, actually, we agreed to doing this, we'll happily work within what we can do. But, you know, being able to stand up and say, actually, no, that's really unsafe. Just on the weekend, we had an event booked and it was raining. And although there was a stage covering and they had called me to go, making sure we've got mats available, making sure we've got a covered marquee for your dancers, I still made the call to say, hey, the dancers are still going to be walking through the rain to get up onto that stage. What we do is really difficult and there is going to be risk for injury. So, you know, I guess that although it's always advised, obviously, to state your conditions before an event, I think that's something that should be standard now. If you're booking an event or you're booking a gig, make sure you state your conditions and how you would like to work. We've confirmed this, we'll be there at this time. Please make sure we have a dressing room, we have all of that. So you've kind of got that in writing and they've agreed to what you expect when you're going to a gig. And then have the confidence on the ground to, you know, be as flexible as possible to make sure you're delivering a really great performance for them, but work within your means and what's safe for you and what you feel comfortable doing. But yeah, we work in different venues every day. So it's kind of hard to have a standard, but at least you can state prior to the event what your conditions are and what you would expect to be working.
Yeah, just remembering to look after yourself, because the one gig, if you decide to not do it because it's unsafe, in 10 years' time, you're not going to remember. But if you get injured, in 10 years' time, you're probably going to have an issue, which I think happens for a lot of people. And even as dancers, I think there's always been a little bit of a culture of that you can dance through the pain, or don't really tell someone about something, or don't voice up in case you won't get the job or you would cause trouble. But I think wellness is really important. And when I was one of the first contracts that I got out of uni, I had to do a lot of performing on concrete, which at the time I was like, this is not great. And I would always try and get a different venue, but I was also young, didn't really want to push it. It was actually okay on my body. But now that I'm much older, I have a chronic injury because of that. So you need to really think about some of those choices, because it will affect you in the future.
If anyone has any questions, please ask away. And just to say, fill in the survey. It is on Dancers Australia IG or Dancers Australia Facebook. We're super keen. We really want Dancers Australia to be a tool for dancers. There is no one that it will not cover. It's a great resource. Dancers Australia will be available for you to ask questions about this kind of thing. And also, just to give you an example, back in the day, which is another, long time ago, there were Kylie Minogue dancers that were not paid, were asked to perform for free, and Mia went in and fought for the dancers and had them paid. So that's what Mia does. That's an example of what they can do. But just, I know I've called them going, what is this? How do I get these rates? And that's another thing we want for Dancers Australia, is for freelance dancers to just have a central place to go to. This is what it is. So when you're quoting or when you're receiving work, being asked to work, you can, you have a benchmark tool, you have something that can validate it. Yeah. Something else I'd like to just chuck out there before we go is, I've had a few dancers come to me and they say how they were just poorly treated by producers of shows and things like that, where they've spoken up and said, I really need to be paid for those rehearsals. And then the dancer was axed from some of the pieces of the show. Just, that kind of conditioning on not speaking up, that's another reason why Dancers Australia is great, so that you've got this backing, this is what rehearsal rates should be. I mean, that's another really great thing for us as dancers. So I feel like I've just raved on a little bit too much, but anyway, but I'm always available to dancers to just talk about this. Let's just, shine some light on it. And we love dance. How much we're so lucky that we do something we totally love for a living. But it's really time, I think, to raise the standard and be like, I love my job and I can buy a house.
dance has been in this planet for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and informs so much part of history and culture. Like, I don't see dance has ever never been valued or relevant. And I think at the moment, with the particular culture and governance of the country, sometimes it's harder to make that point. But I honestly believe that it is always been valued, and it's how we carry knowledge and stories, and, you know, progress society through hard times.
Yeah.
What you
I would just, yeah, what she said. And I just, you know, I just think we undervalue the benefit of joy and feeling good in this culture. You know, like, it's kind of seen as you have to be out there making money, you know, like for a big corporate or whatever. But you know, I think that we are examples of, you can earn an income and totally love your job, you know. Not to say that people in corporate companies don't enjoy their work, but I'm just, wouldn't it be great if we could just be just a bit more valued, like seen, like paid like footballers? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be lovely? Anyway, we're going to wrap it up there. Want to thank everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Andrew from Dancers Australia, for giving a damn. Thank you, Neri from Fluxus too, and Leah from Elements Collective. Such great voices in the industry. And yeah, do the survey, guys, and we'll see you another time.
Thanks, Meg.
Bye
Thanks,
bye.
Meg.